My family ignored my efforts for years, so I rose to success and made them regret it. My aunt's voice was already syrupy through the microphone, the kind of "we're all so grateful" tone that makes you brace for impact, and I could feel my smile turning stiff at the corners as she scanned the backyard like she was choosing a volunteer church. The patio lights made everyone's faces look softer than they were. Someone had put those big gold number balloons up for Dad's 60th. 6 and 0 wobbling in the breeze, while the grill hissed behind us and the smell of smoke clung to my hair. My cousins were laughing too loud near the drinks table. My mom was doing her hostess lap with a platter of skewers, and my brother Kieran stood front and center, hands in his pockets, looking relaxed in that way people do when they know nothing is going to be asked of them. Then my aunt lifted the mic higher and said, "And of course, none of this would be possible without Renee." My stomach dropped. She smiled right at me, bright and triumphant, like she'd just handed me a bouquet. "Come up here, sweetheart. Tell everyone the good news." I didn't move. I could feel the heat in my face and the cold in my hands at the same time, like my body couldn't decide whether to fight or freeze. People started clapping on autopilot because they thought I was about to announce something cute, an engagement, a baby, a new job. My mom's eyes flashed toward me. Quick warning, and she mouthed, "Please." Kieran's head turned, just slightly, and I caught his expression. Not surprised, not curious, annoyed, like I was about to ruin a plan he'd already built in his head. My aunt kept smiling, mic poised. "Don't be shy," she laughed. "Tell them you're doing it." I swallowed, tasted lemonade and metal. "Doing what?" I asked, loud enough that the front tables went quiet, and the clapping died off in confused little bursts. My aunt's smile twitched. "Oh, she said, waving her free hand like it was obvious. "Helping your father with the next chapter. The family thing." I looked straight at my dad. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared past me, jaw tight, like he was watching the grill. My mom took a step toward me, still holding her platter, whispering through her teeth, "Renee, don't." "Not tonight." Kieran finally spoke, voice low but sharp. "Renee, stop. You know what this is." And that's when something in me, something that had been quietly swallowing my own anger for years, finally clicked into place. I felt my spine straighten like it had been waiting for permission. I heard my own voice come out calm, which shocked me because inside I was shaking. "No," I said. "I don't know what this is because nobody asked me. You just decided." It was a Tuesday night, about a month before Dad's birthday, when I realized my family wasn't just ignoring my efforts anymore. They were building their future on them while pretending I didn't exist. I was still at my desk at nearly 10, laptop open, one eye burning from staring at spreadsheets and the other watering from a cheap candle I'd lit to make my tiny apartment feel less like a box. My phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Talia. "I feel gross sending this, but you need to see it." Then a screenshot popped up from a family group chat I wasn't in. The name was something cheerful like Dad's 60th surprise party popper, and the messages underneath made my stomach go hollow. "My aunt will announce Renee's contribution at the party so she can't back out." "My mom, she'll do it. She's responsible. Just make it sound like her idea." "My brother, finally. She owes Dad after all those years." Then my uncle. "She's rich now, right? This is nothing to her." The contribution they were talking about wasn't a gift basket or a weekend away. It was money, real money. Tens of thousands to help Dad start his dream, which apparently meant putting my name and my savings behind Kieran's latest business plan. To understand why that screenshot made me feel like I'd been shoved underwater, you have to understand the role I've played in my family since I was a kid. The quiet fixer. The kid who remembered permission slips, who made sure bills got paid when Mom forgot, who learned to cook pasta at 11 because Dad worked late and Kieran didn't like doing chores. My family loves to call me the capable one, like it's a compliment, but it's always been a way of saying, we can lean on you without feeling guilty. Kieran was the golden boy, not because he was cruel, exactly, but because he was loud and charming and always had a reason why he couldn't follow through. He'd start things, gym plans, business ideas, courses, and abandon them the second they got hard. My parents treated it like he was a misunderstood genius. My failures were treated like character flaws. If I got a B, Mom would ask what happened. If Kieran failed, Dad would say, "School isn't for everyone." If I was tired, Mom would say, "You're young." If Kieran was tired, Mom would make him a sandwich. So I got good at being useful. I did well at school because it was the only way anyone praised me. I got a scholarship. I worked while I studied. I learned how to talk to adults like an adult because no one else was going to advocate for me. When I got my first real job in marketing after graduation, my family acted proud in public and dismissive in private. Dad would introduce me as the office girl. Mom would ask why I wasn't a teacher like her friend's daughter. Kieran would ask if I could help him with his resume, which always turned into me doing the whole thing while he watched YouTube. Then, during COVID, I started freelancing on the side because I was bored and anxious and wanted to feel like I had control over something. I built websites for small businesses. I ran social media campaigns. I did branding packages. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady and I was good at it. One client turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. My little side thing turned into a real agency. Mostly word of mouth, because I'm the kind of person who can't half do anything. I started saving properly. I paid off my student debt. I stopped panicking every time my car made a noise. My life started to look stable in a way my family didn't understand. And the moment they realized I wasn't broke anymore, the dynamic shifted. Not into respect, into appetite. It started small. Mom would forget her card at the supermarket when we went together. Dad would mention bills in that heavy sigh way. Kieran would call with, "Hey, I'm embarrassed to ask," and then ask anyway. I help sometimes because I'm not heartless, because I love them, because it's hard to rewire a lifetime of being trained to prove your love with sacrifice. But I started noticing how the help was never followed by gratitude. It was followed by the next request. And the biggest request, the one they tried to trap me into at Dad's birthday, came from Kieran's latest dream, a mobile coffee trailer business. He'd been talking about it for months like it was inevitable. He sent me TikToks of people pulling espresso shots in cute vans. He'd say things like, "It's going to change everything for us." Not for me, for us. Like my life was automatically part of his. He wanted a trailer, equipment, permits, branding, and a buffer to get started. He also wanted Dad to run it with him because Dad was turning 60 and needed something to do. Dad, who has worked physically hard his whole life and has been talking more and more about his back pain, was suddenly being sold a fantasy of early morning markets and being his own boss. My family had decided this would be Dad's dream, even though it was clearly Kieran's. And then they decided I'd pay for it. The part that makes me feel sick is that nobody came to me like an adult and said, "Renee, could you help us invest in this? Here's the plan. Here's how you be paid back. Here are the risks." They didn't ask because asking would mean I could say no. They built a story where I was generous and supportive, and then they planned to announce it publicly, so refusing would make me look like the villain. When I saw that screenshot, I sat on my couch for a long time staring at my laptop screen without seeing it. My chest felt tight, like I've been holding my breath for years and only just noticed. I thought about every late night I'd worked. Every time I'd skipped things to save money. Every time I'd smiled through family jokes about me being married to my laptop. And now, because I've finally built something, they were treating my success like community property. I didn't sleep much that week. I didn't call them and scream. I didn't confront them immediately. I did something quieter, scarier. I made sure I wasn't trapped. First, I met with my accountant and got very clear on my numbers. I'm not rolling in endless cash. I'm doing well, yes, but I have overhead, taxes, staff contractors, and goals. I'm building something that could actually last. I'm not a jackpot. I'm a person who has worked for every dollar. Then I wrote down what I actually wanted, separate from my family's noise. I wanted my business to grow. I want to buy my own place one day. I wanted to help Dad in ways that didn't involve being used as a bank. I want to stop feeling sick every time my phone rang. Then I did the hardest thing. I talked to Dad alone. I asked him to meet me for coffee after work one day, just us. He showed up looking tired, hands rough, wearing his usual faded work shirt. He smiled like he was happy to see me, and for a second, I wanted to drop everything and just be his daughter. Then he said, "Your mom says you're stressed lately." I didn't ease into it. I said, "Dad, Kieran wants money for the coffee trailer. Mom and Aunt Sue are planning to announce at your party that I'm funding it." "Did you know that?" Dad's eyes flicked away. The silence was answer enough. "Dad," I said quieter, "did you tell them I do that?" He sighed, long and heavy, like this was a burden being placed on him rather than something he was part of. "It's just a way to keep the family together," he muttered. "Kieran needs a break." "I needed a break too," I said, and my voice cracked a little despite my effort to keep it steady. I needed support. I never got it. Dad's jaw worked. "You always handled yourself." "That's not the compliment you think it is," I said. And I watched his face tighten because parents don't like hearing that the story they tell themselves is flawed. He rubbed his forehead. "It's my birthday, Renee. Your mother just wants it to be nice." I stared at him, feeling that familiar mix of love and anger. "Nice for who?" I asked. "For you or for them?" Dad finally looked at me then, and there was something almost guilty in his eyes. "Kieran says it'll pay you back," he said. "Does he?" I asked. "Has he ever paid back anything?" Dad didn't answer. I left that cafe with my stomach in knots, but my mind clear. Dad wasn't helpless in this. He was tired and worn down, yes. But he was also letting them use me because it made his life easier in the moment. And that hurt more than I expected. So I decided, if they were going to force me into a public moment, I would control what happened in that moment. Not with screaming. With reality. Which brings us back to the backyard, the mic, the fairy lights, my aunt's triumphant smile, and everyone waiting for me to say yes. After I said, "Nobody asked me. You just decided," my aunt blinked like I'd spoken a different language. My mom's face went white hot. She stepped forward fast, still holding her platter, and whispered, "Renee, please, just not now." Kieran laughed, sharp and dismissive. "Oh my God," he said, loud enough for the nearest tables. "Here we go. Always has to be a drama." I turned toward him slowly. "You plan to announce I'm funding your business without asking me," I said. "That's not drama. That's you trying to corner me." Mom jumped in, voice trembling with anger. "It's for your father," she said. "Your father deserves something good." "Then do something good for him," I said. "Don't do something good for Kieran using my money." Dad finally spoke, voice too loud. "Renee, that's enough. That phrase, that's enough." Hit like a trigger. I'd heard it my whole life whenever I got too close to truth. Enough questions. Enough feelings. Enough making them uncomfortable. Enough being inconvenient. I took a breath and reached into my bag. The folder was there, thick with paper, heavier than it should have felt. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I pulled out one sheet first. A simple one-page outline titled Coffee Trailer Startup Costs and Risks. No fancy formatting, just bullets. I held it up like I was giving a presentation at work because honestly, this was easier than most client meetings. I deal with adults for a living. My family just pretends to be. I did some research. I said, calm. Here's the cost. Here's the risk. Here's what Kieran needs to start. Here's what happens if the trailer breaks down, if permits get delayed, if sales are slow, if he gets bored. If you wanted my help, you could have asked me like adults and shown me a plan. Kieran's face darkened. "Are you serious right now?" "Yes," I said, "because I'm tired of being treated like an endless resource." Someone at the side, one of my older cousins, muttered, "Fair," and it made my mom's head snap around like she'd heard blasphemy. Mom took the mic from my aunt and tried to regain control with volume. "We are not doing this," she said, smiling tightly at the crowd like she could will them into not witnessing. "This is family business." "You made it public," I said. "So now it's public." Dad stepped closer to me, voice low, warning. "Don't embarrass your mother." I looked at him and felt something painful but clarifying settle in my chest. "You embarrass me," I said quietly. "You let them announce my money like it was yours." That shut him up for half a second, which in my family is basically a miracle. Kieran lunged for humor again, that charming tone he uses when he's trying to make me look uptight. "So what? You just gonna hoard your money while Dad works until he drops?" I didn't take the bait. I nodded once and said, "Here's what I am willing to do." I pulled out another sheet, a direct debit confirmation and a simple budget line. "Starting next month, I'm covering Dad's physio sessions for his back. And I'm paying for a cleaner to come once a fortnight so Mom doesn't have to run herself ragged. That's for Dad. That's support, not funding Kieran's fantasy. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She looked thrown because that didn't fit the script where I'm selfish. It also didn't give her what she wanted, control over my money, but it took away her ability to claim I was abandoning Dad. Kieran scoffed loud. So you'll pay for physio, but you won't invest in the business that could actually make money? That's stupid. It's not an investment if you don't have a plan, I said. It's a donation. He stepped forward, voice rising. You think you're better than us. I felt my hands start to shake now, not from fear, but from adrenaline. The old me would have softened, would have made a joke, would have backed down to keep the party pleasant. I didn't. I looked him in the eye and said, I don't think I'm better. I think I'm tired. And I think you've been allowed to fail without consequences while I've been expected to carry everyone. The backyard was dead quiet. Even the kids had slowed, sensing the tension. The fairy lights hummed softly. Somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's dog barked. My aunt tried to jump in, voice wobbly. Renee, darling, we only thought. You thought shame would work? I said, still calm. You thought I'd smile and say yes, because everyone's watching. Mum's eyes filled with tears like she was about to perform the victim role, but her voice came out sharp. You're ruining your father's night. I turned my head toward the crowd, toward the people who'd shown up with gifts and smiles, and I said something I never say. I'm sorry you're seeing this. I didn't plan to do this tonight. They did. Mum made a strangled noise. Dad's face went red. Kieran looked like he wanted to flip a table. And then, because life loves timing, my grandmother, who had been sitting quietly near the side of her chair, spoke up. She doesn't talk much anymore because she gets tired, but when she does, everyone listens because she's the kind of old that carries authority without trying. Leave the girl alone, she said, voice thin but steady. Mum whipped around. Mum. No, Grandma said, and the single-syllable cut through Mum's whining like a knife. You've treated her like the family's spare pair of hands since she was a child. And now you want to treat her like your wallet, too. I felt my throat tighten so fast, I nearly choked. I hadn't expected anyone to back me. Not openly. Not like that. Mum's face crumpled. Dad looked stunned. Kieran looked furious, like Grandma had betrayed him. Grandma's eyes landed on me. You built your life, she said softly. Don't let them spend it. That was it. That was the lesson. Not me winning. Not some dramatic mic drop. Just the truth being said out loud by someone who had watched the whole pattern unfold for decades. I didn't stay to argue more. I didn't need to. I'd stated my boundary. I'd offered support directly tied to Dad, not to Kieran's plan. I'd made it clear I wouldn't be cornered. I leaned toward Dad and said quietly, Happy birthday. I love you. I'm not your bank. Then I walked inside, grabbed my bag properly, and left through the side gate. I could hear Mum crying behind me. Dad's angry voice, Kieran's sharp words. The party kept going in that awkward half-life way. People trying to keep eating, trying to pretend this wasn't happening, trying to decide if they should leave. In my car, parked down the street under a streetlight, my hands finally started shaking hard. Not dramatic sobbing, just that deep tremor you get when you've held yourself together with tension for years and then finally let go. I sat there breathing through it, staring at the glow from my parents' backyard, listening to my phone buzz with messages I didn't want to read. Mum, how could you humiliate us? Dad, you're ungrateful. Kieran, you're dead to me. Then, a message from my cousin Talia. I'm proud of you. Seriously. And that one made me cry, because it was the first time in my life someone in my family had looked at me setting a boundary and called it strength instead of selfishness. The next few weeks were grim. Mum tried every tactic she has. Crying calls, icy silence, guilt about Dad's health, long texts about family values, attempts to make me the villain in group chats. Dad oscillated between anger and avoidance. Kieran went full martyr, telling anyone who would listen that I'd changed and money ruined me. He even posted some vague thing on Facebook about people forgetting where they came from, which would have been funny if it didn't hurt. But here's what also happened quietly while they were busy being dramatic. Dad went to his first physio appointment. He texted me afterward, just one line. It helped. Thank you. Mom let the cleaner in and then called me later, voice softer than it had been in months, and admitted, almost reluctantly, that it was nice not to spend her weekend scrubbing bathrooms. Grandma called me one evening and told me she was proud, and that she wished she'd said something sooner when I was younger. And Kieran? Kieran did what he always does when a plan collapses. He looked for a new angle. He tried to start the coffee trailer, anyway, with a loan from a friend. It lasted 3 weekends before the trailer had an electrical issue, and he didn't have the energy to deal with it. He blamed me for not helping him problem solve. He blamed Dad for not being enthusiastic enough. He blamed the weather. He blamed the market. He didn't once look at himself. At one point, Mom called me and said, "Your brother is really struggling." And I could hear the familiar invitation in her voice. "Fix it," I said, gently but firmly. Then he should get help. A therapist, a career counselor, something. I'm not his solution. Mom went quiet. Then, very quietly, she said, "You're different now." And this time I didn't flinch. "I am," I said, "because I finally learned I'm allowed to be." Do I feel triumphant? Not really. It's not a movie. It's not satisfying in the way revenge stories are satisfying. It's mostly sad. It's grieving the version of my family I kept hoping existed. The one where effort is noticed, where love doesn't come with invoices, where my success is celebrated without being claimed. But I also feel lighter, like I stopped dragging a weight I was never meant to carry. My family ignored my efforts for years. They ignored the late nights, the careful budgeting, the way I built a life out of sheer stubbornness and fear of falling. They only noticed when it became useful to them. And when they tried to cash in on it, I did the one thing they never expected. I refused to perform gratitude for being used. If they regret it now, it's not because I punished them. It's because they finally had to face the reality they've avoided for years. The person they treated like a supporting character built a whole life anyway, and she's no longer available to be written into their plans without her consent.